I decided when I was 14 I wanted to be a wrestler. So, back this was God way before the internet, and nobody would even have imagined it. So I'd walk to the local library and I'd get I got the phone books for like Charlotte and Minneapolis and Tampa, and because I would find out where the offices were for the wrestling promotions around the country from Bill Apter's magazines, and then I'd go find the white pages for Charlotte, North Carolina. I'd look up Crockett Promotions. I'd get the phone number, and what I do is once a month I would call the office, and I would basically ask for one of them to be willing to train me. And of course, some of the boys worked in the office at the time, and they'd either bust my balls or they'd cuss me out, or and after a while they got to where, because I'd do it once a month. I'd call every office in the United States once a month. I'd even call Carlos down in Puerto Rico, and they'd all just, sometimes if they're bored, they'd talk to me, and sometimes if they weren't, they'd just hang up on me, or they'd put the phone down and just leave me there. My dad would get so mad because of the fact that that was back when you had to pay for long distance.
That was long distance calling.
Yeah, that was long distance calling. And so I was 17, and I called Crockett's office, and Gene answered the phone. And I talked to Gene a couple other times, and unbeknownst to me at the time, and I met Sandy Scott years later when I worked in Smoky Mountain and became good friends with Sandy. And he would answer the phone, and I'd talk to him once in a while, and they'd always blow me off. But then got a hold of Gene probably in May of that year, I think, May of '81. And, Gene said, well, we're having a tryout, in October. You can come down. It's $250 to try out. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I got $250. I got a job washing dishes and saved up my money, and I sold my car like an idiot. Now that I think about it, I could have just drove my car, but I bought a bus ticket on a Greyhound bus that took 24 hours to go to Charlotte, North Carolina. Cruel and unusual punishment. And got to the bus station, didn't even occur. There was, no Uber, nothing like that. I had to walk 5 miles out to the old Charlotte Coliseum from the bus station, and made it out there like the day before on that Saturday, and then got up the next morning and walked over to the Charlotte Coliseum. And when I got there, Gene was the only guy that was there. So he comes around and asks for the money, and I give him money, and then he tells me I got to sign this release. So I'd never signed a release before. I was only 17 years old. So he's the only one there. So it says,
they got your money before harmless. You signed.
Oh yeah, yeah. So, but who you hold harmless is, Gene's the only one there. So I just write Gene Anderson, duh. So there's probably about 30, 35 guys that come down, all come down for this tryout. We all get dressed, we get ready, and then Ole shows up with like 6 guys he's already training. And, he starts yelling at everybody and, barking at them. And he's like, let's go out in the back. And you remember the old parking lot in the back of the Charlotte Coliseum, the original one, if you remember, Jerry, it went across and then it kind of went up the hill, and then it went in the back of it. It went up a little more of a hill. Then it came back down.
It was like an angle going up. Yeah.
Yes. So we had to go run 5 miles around the parking lot, right? So some of the guys are already starting to drop off. Like, we're now down to maybe from 35. Now we're down to about 27. They couldn't make it through the 5 mile run. So make it through the 5 mile run. I didn't come in first. I didn't come in last, but I made it.
Had you trained for this?
Fuck no. I did that. I had no idea.
Tremendous.
I had no idea what I was getting into. I had no idea.
What did you think you were going to as a wrestling tryout camp?
I'd never done it. I didn't know. So, but I was in good shape. I mean, I was a good athlete, and we went in, and thank God that was the only thing that made me survive it. The next thing, we all come in and we got to do 500 free squats. Got to do them. So we got 500 squats, and now we're people are starting to drop, and I'm slowing down. Well, we're not done yet. You got to run the stairs in between the seats of every one of the rows of the Coliseums. You got to go up, come back down, move over, go up, come back down, move over, come back up, all the way around. So, and trust me, at this point, when I'm coming down the stairs, my legs are about to give out. They're all shaky and wobbly from the 500 squats. And then he's like, we're not done yet. And then everybody gets down on the floor, and he's like, you got to do 400 push-ups. And I'm like, 400 push-ups? This guy's out of his mind. I didn't care. Gene did not care how you did it. Ole didn't care how you did it. If you just picked yourself up and fell down, you were to do 400. So
none of that was going on.
we're starting to whittle more guys away. You know what I mean?
I couldn't have done that in 6 months.
It was, to this day, I just kept going. I don't know how. My body was shaking, and so now they're taking guys into the ring to try out, and Gene's over with us, and Ole's in the ring with guys, and I'm listening to him barking and beating guys up. One guy he's yelling at, and because he's teaching how to belly out a guy, grapevine his leg, and a rear chin lock him, right? So he's rear chin locked this guy, and I remember the guy had long blonde hair, was kind of heavy set, and he's yelling at him to give up, and he's shaking him back and forth. And then Gene is now the voice of reason and goes, wait a minute, he's unconscious. He's not going to give up. So the guy's bleeding from the mouth because I think Ole broke his jaw. And basically, Ole just kicks the guy who's semi-conscious out of the ring. He falls head first on the floor and tells him to get the fuck out of the building. And I'm like, oh my God, like they're killing people now. So, what am I going to do? So if it's not your turn yet to go in the ring, you got to put somebody on your back, and you've got to run the length of the Coliseum and back. So I of course get some moving. Yeah, you got to keep moving. So I get this guy. It's like 300 pounds of, and I'm like $180, $190 at that time. So for me, it's nothing for him to run all the way down and back. When I put his fat ass on me, it's, I'm literally my whole body is shaking. And so if it's still not your turn, you got to do jumping jacks till it's your turn. You get in the ring. Ole comes up and immediately just starts yelling at me. And I forgot to mention, I'd gotten the name of Jim Lancaster, who was he was like a journeyman pro wrestler. He'd been in Memphis. He'd been in Charlotte. You probably know Jim.
Know Jim, yeah.
Bigger guy. Was
good guy.
Big, yeah. He was good guy. He kind of went into semi-retirement and was starting to look to start running outlaw stuff on his own. I'd spoken to him before going there, and he was like, nope, I ain't got no interest in training people. And tried to get me to go to Al Costello out of Detroit, because Al was starting to train guys, and then I just happened to get a hold of Gene. So when I told him, I said I was going down to try out, he said, well, tell them I said hi. I go, okay. So Ole comes in and starts yelling at me, and he's up in my face, and I'm like 17, and here's Ole Anderson. He's just,
what's he yelling?
First he calls me Columbus because he can't remember my name. So he just keeps calling me Columbus because it's the only town he knows in Ohio. And he just keeps calling me Columbus. And he goes, have you ever wrestled before? And I go, yeah. And I'm about to tell him, and he just cuts me right off. And he goes, why do you want to be here? And I start giving him the answers, and he just cuts me off. And I go, oh, by the way, and Jim Lancaster's real name's Jim Painter, right? So Ole doesn't know him by Jim Painter. He knows him by Jim Lancaster. And I go, hey, Jim Painter says hi. And he goes, I don't know who the fuck that is. Get down. And I'm like, okay. So immediately, I've got to get down on all fours in the referee position, get down on all fours in amateur wrestling. And then what he's doing is, you've got to make it through all of the guys he's training. And like the smallest guys, my size now, you know, I'm like 17, 100 buck 90. So I to this day, I swear to you, I don't know how I did it, but I get down, the guy gets behind me. He's supposed to belly me out, grapevine my leg, rear chin lock me. I sit out on him, I get away. Ole flips out, starts screaming at the kid. It gets, get down again. I get down. He gets me another guy, and then another guy, and another guy. Finally, he gives me this guy's just, he's just gassed up to the gills, and he's just swole. And he gets me down. He puts me in a rear chin lock, and somehow I get back to all fours, and Ole's upset, and he's yelling at me, screaming, "Do you want to give up?" I probably would have, but I couldn't say anything because my jaw was clenched shut. So puts me on the guy again, and I'm exhausted. My body's shaking, and the guy gets me down this time. Grapevines my legs, got me in the rear chin lock, and he just keeps remember he keeps going, "You want to go home, Columbus? You want to go home?" And I wanted to say yes, but I couldn't say anything because the guy had me in a rear chin lock. So he took that. He took that as, well, I guess you're a badass, huh? So you're not going to give up. And I'm like, I guess not. I didn't know what else to say. I was confused and I was exhausted. And so up to this point, every other person Ole personally took and would basically stretch at this point. He'd beat him up and then send him out. He broke, the one guy's jaw, and he a couple other guys. Well, because I had signed Gene's name to the paper, Gene rolls in reluctantly. And then I get, Ole yells, "Get down, get down." So I get down on all fours, and I'm, again, physically, I'm just shaking. I'm just running on adrenaline. And then Gene gets on me, and Ole goes, "Go." And the next thing I know, Gene starts pulling my hair. He's fish hooking me for real, like digging his fingers to where he splits my gums and tears my mouth. And he's and I didn't know it until later. And when I get back to the hotel, I had bite marks all over my back where
he bit you.
He bit me.
He bit you.
He bit me.
That was Gene.
And yeah, Gene was.
I can see that. I've
seen.
Him.
He was ripping and tearing, and so I'm trying to fight him. And we roll over by the ropes. He slams my face into the bottom rope, which was, Jerry, I don't need to tell you, it's just steel aircraft cable with hose over it. He breaks my nose. We're still rolling around. And then all of a sudden I feel a hand try to grab my balls. And my balls just kind of move over to the side like, we're not doing that. And so I grabbed his, and I grab him and I squeeze him as hard as I can. And we're flopping around on the mat. He's yelling. I'm fighting for my life. And then he rolls me over on my back and puts his thumb in my eye, and he's like, "Do you want to lose your eye? Do you want to lose your eye, kid?" Now Ole becomes the voice of reason and steps in, and okay, all right, let's calm it down. Let's calm it down. And gets Gene up, and I get up, and Ole just basically says, "Get the fuck out of my ring." I got blood just pouring out of my face. Gene kicks me in the ass as I go through the ropes, and I fall out of the ring and land on the floor and walk my way back and clean myself up and came back out.
What was the point of the tryout? I mean, was there you made
there was one kid. There was one kid apparently, and he was a really awesome athlete, and the one kid out of about 35 guys made it through. They liked him. Ole liked him and sat him over to the side. And I didn't know for years. Like, I met Sandy Scott in Smoky Mountain, and then this came up, and he was asking about it, and I told him about it, and I said there was one guy that kind of was a black kid that made it through, and he goes, "Oh, that, okay," because apparently because there was no schools and nobody had a ring, Ole would bring guys to, like, that group of 6, he would bring to the local YMCA, and then they would train on the mats at the local YMCA. And this one kid, Sandy said he remembered that kid showing up for like a week or two, and then Ole basically stretched him to the point to where he quit, and he never returned, never came back. So out of the 35 plus guys, one guy made it through, lasted 2 weeks, and then was never seen again. Never heard from him again.
You made it. That's what counts.
Yeah, I remember.
$250 for this.
At
You know,
250 bucks.
Al,
Yeah.
I've
Well,
seen.
wait a minute, Jared. Then you still had to get back to Ohio,
And
right?
then, oh my God. Then that was the worst, because the next day, after all of that, all the muscle soreness kicked in, and where I got bit and I got beat up all kicked in.
I
So
can't believe Gene bit you.
He bit me multiple times. I had bruises all over my back, bite marks in my back. I had to walk 5 miles back to the bus station and then take a 24-hour bus ride back home. And then I had broken nose. And I remember coming in the house and my dad's like, "Oh my God, what the hell happened to you?" And I couldn't even explain it to him. And I couldn't, my legs were so sore from doing all the squats and the running and all that. I couldn't go to the bathroom upstairs. So I basically had a milk jug downstairs that I would pee in. And then if I had to take a dump, I would drive to the gas station, and I would use the gas station facilities to take a dump, because I couldn't make it up the stairs. So yeah, that was a pretty interesting run.